Hello and welcome to yet another video. This is the third episode of the series in which Naruto confronts the reality of shinobi life. Following the battle at the bridge in Wave, Naruto turns a new leaf and begins training seriously. Please like and subscribe to show your support. Let's get the show started. Not very far from the tower, Naruto decided it was time to set up camp and do some light questioning. The others aside from his prisoner were asleep. He slowly walked over to her, all the while studying her expression. She was afraid, but of what he wasn't all that sure. Perhaps she'd be willing to reveal a few pieces of information. He summoned a few clones to keep watch before sitting down in front of her. She glared at him defiantly, but something about it seemed out of place. Considering the entire situation, he started the preparations. Pulling out a blank seal tag, he quickly formed the seal for a silence barrier before activating it. A near-invisible barrier formed a dome around them, snuffing out all sound coming from the outside. After that, he pulled out a set of Senbon needles, sticking one into a pressure point of each of her limbs, paralyzing them, before cutting of the ninja wire used to tie her up. Once more checking the chakra suppression seal, he calmly sat down. Inside he was sickened by what he was about to do. He didn't enjoy the idea of interrogating someone by using fear, but he knew just how important this information would be. "We can do this the easy way. I ask a few questions, you answer them, and if I'm content I'll let you go as soon as we reach the tower," he said in a polite but firm tone. "And if I won't?" the girl asked, speaking for the first time, mostly because her gag was finally removed. Naruto's face darkened. "Suffice to say that it won't be pleasant," he retorted humorlessly. Kin swallowed hard, while the young man in front of her was supposed to be a genin. Everything about him screamed experience and skill. And she was perfectly aware that her life was completely in his hands. No one would comment if she suddenly turned up dead, and he'd spared her life once. "How do I know you won't kill me as soon as I tell you anything?" she asked, now visibly afraid. Naruto chuckled. "You don't," he said, instantly turning serious, "but what you do know, is that if you don't cooperate, I could leave you here paralyzed and bleeding for the beasts to play with." Naruto had no intention of doing so, however. He could only hope that his threats would be enough. Laced with a bit of killing intent, so far they seemed to work. Kin, after deliberating her options, perfectly aware that Orochimaru would kill her when he found out she was caught, and that would be if she was lucky, decided that she might at least make the bastard's life miserable. "For starters, what is your name?" he asked in a firm tone. "Kintsuchi," she quickly replied, with her head down, watching the ground. Naruto made a sad smile. She was now almost broken, but he wouldn't allow himself to cross that threshold. Looking back at the small fire he had set up, he pulled the instant ramen cup which was now properly heated. "Are you hungry?" he asked in a much kinder voice. Kin looked at him in a mixture of surprise and disbelief. She nodded. For a moment he wondered whether his next decision was wise, but he decided to do it anyway. Without chakra, she wasn't a threat. After pulling out the needles from her arms and quickly healing the area, Kin's arms were once more free to move. Without a word he handed her the cup of ramen along with a set of chopsticks. "Enjoy," he said with a small smile as the girl first watched the food suspiciously, before giving up her suspicions and wolfing it down. Naruto took the time to one more analyze her and gather in his mind the questions he meant to ask. Kintsuchi, genin of Hokage. Skills at mid-chunin level, focuses on Senbon needles, had needles attached to ninja wire with bells. No other apparent skills. He finished the first analysis. "So, what I need to ask is about Hokage, its unknown leader, and why she is afraid of Lord Orochimaru." Not exactly easy questions. And if she's working for him, why doesn't she have the scent of snakes like Kabuto? Kin had finally finished her short meal, laying down the cup on the ground, before lying down with her back on the tree behind her. She seemed a bit more relaxed than she was before, but fear was still present. Then he noticed a detail that worried him. The brashness and the attitude were a mask, much like his. She was afraid. Now, let's get back to the questions, he kindly said, but his voice still kept its firmness. Kin spent what little time she had studying her captor. While very serious, and ridiculously strong compared to her, he seemed like a kind man. Perhaps she'd get a painless death. It seemed that would be most she would get. It would be a blessing considering the alternatives. What do you want to know? She asked in a defeated voice. What can you tell me about the leader of your village? He asked while grabbing his cup of ramen. For a moment Kin sat silent. Under threat of death. I'm dead anyway. The leader of Hokage is Orochimaru, she explained in a calm tone. Naruto on the other hand spat out the ramen he was eating. That was unexpected. So, Orochimaru, as Hokage, sent a team to hunt down someone in my team, while he was present here himself. Sasuke, he planned to put that damnable seal on him, and then the team he sent would have been a test for his newfound power. Just how much of a manipulative bastard can one man be? Regardless, I have to get this information to Gigi. But how? Surprised? Kin asked. Quite, he said after recovering. He was thankful that he didn't spill any of the ramen on his clothes. That would have been troublesome. What was your mission? He continued. To spy during the exams and to take out Sasuke Uchiha. Penalty for failure, he asked again, to be used as a subject in Lord Orochimaru's experiments. As Kin spoke, she shuddered. Even Naruto felt a shiver go up his spine. And he thought that this was too much. He sent his subjects to a certain death either way. To hell with it all. I may be a fool for doing this, but I can't let her just die like that. But how to persuade the old man? He paused his train of thought for a moment, considering the possibilities. That's it. Information on Hokage and Orochimaru in return for asylum. The old man would probably accept that. I might have an offer for you. Very few people in the observation room of the tower were surprised that Konoha's Team 7, under the tutelage of Kakashi Hatake, was able to safely arrive, carrying no less than 4 scrolls and a prisoner. The last bit surprised most of them, but they had to admit it was an acceptable tactic to reduce enemy numbers. Out of all present jounin, Kakashi was especially proud. He had seen his team change from a bunch of brats into more than capable group. The 3 clones of Naruto following the original had finally arrived in front of the tower. The ancient edifice before them inspired awe in the young man. He smiled to his now sleeping companions and prisoner. The young woman had some interesting information he was sure Anko and Ibiki would kill for, or do something even more unpleasant. He would have to talk about it to the old man. He was certain he could convince him to do something. Walking into the tower, another thought occurred to him. How many teams did manage to get here? 12 o'clock, Konoha, ANBU headquarters, office of the head of torture and interrogation. Ibiki Marino was having a field day and sporting an uncharacteristic grin which made sure that most of the ANBU kept a safe distance. First, the kid that Anko was talking so much about had brought them in Kabuto Yakushi, and the poor bastard didn't even know that he was a spy thanks to a well-concealed seal on the back of his neck, and not even a mind reader from the Yamanaka clan was able to dig out anything. Unfortunately, none of them knew how to break said seal, although he did make several copies, planning to give one to Wonderboy, he kept calling him much to Anko's chagrin. The second thing that made his day was the fact that the same kid brought another person to feel his tender skills. Now, he was seriously considering buying the kid a drink, or at least dropping by to watch the remainder of his matches. Those should be fun, he idly thought as he sealed up his set of torture instruments. Going through his mental checklist, he finally turned off the light in his office before proceeding to the prisons of the tower. 1400 hours, the tower in the forest of death. Much to his endless pleasure, Naruto was finally able to rest. Kin was now held within one of the tower's prison cells, awaiting the arrival of Ibiki Marino and Hiruzen Sarutobi for her interrogation. Sarutobi, while hesitant, was willing to offer the girl protection in return for all the information she could give on Orochimaru. And to his growing surprise, Ibiki had asked for him to be present. Something was bugging him though. Since the moment he woke up after the battle with Orochimaru, his chakra has been off. Resigning to figure it out later, he returned to his observations. It was time for practice. Sitting down behind the railing, he closed his eyes and focused on distorting the shape of the field of radiance so that he could reach the door. He was very much glad to find it not nearly as hard as he expected. Idly monitoring from his hidden perch on the first floor, he gazed at the teams that were arriving. One such team was Team 8, consisting of Kiba, Hinata and Shino. Trackers, he reminded himself, his mind racing through all the information he could gather on them. Kiba Inuzuka, clan heir of the Inuzuka clan, partnered by the Nindog Akamaru. Specialty tracking and clan taijutsu techniques. No ninjutsu or genjutsu. Brash, arrogant, but very loyal and dedicated. Shino Aburame, another clan heir. Uses Kikai beetles which feed on chakra, leaving the host's body very low on it. And incapable of using chakra-consuming jutsu, but capable of using the beetles for various clan techniques. Specializes in recon, tracking and clan techniques, mostly stoic and withdrawn but highly intelligent and loyal. And finally Hyuga Hinata. Taijutsu specialist, using the gentle fist style and wielder of the Hyuga bloodline Byakugan. Shy, withdrawn and has confidence issues but fiercely protective of her friends and family. Also has an apparent crush on me. The others walked in a well. Team 10 under Sarutobi Asuma, the Ino Shikacho trio, just like their parents before them. Decent level of skill, but nothing special. Out of the three, Shikamaru Nara was the one to be feared for his intellect, which he was more than willing to use should the situation call for it. At other times he was a lazy bum. His control over shadows was his strong point. Ino Yamanaka, a mind walker like her father, is dangerous, but not overly so. Another fangirl apparently. Choji is probably the strongest out of our generation, a pure taijutsu expert. Despite his usually calm attitude, he is not to be underestimated. Two interesting teams. Naruto silently mused, well, best get going, and that he would have done had he not seen something that provoked his curiosity. One of the sleeping rooms had its door open, and inside was Gaara, lying on his bed curled up and crying while whispering something. He reminded himself that he was probably the most dangerous of all of the genin present at the exams, so a little espionage could be of use. Putting a bit of chakra into his ears, he leaned on the wall just far enough so it wouldn't seem that he was spying and focused on the boy's voice, the memories, the blood, he whispered in a scared voice, before it stopped, only to be replaced by maniacal laughter. The laughter that would have made Orochimaru cringe in fear. What happened to him, he sadly wondered, shaking his head. He decided it would be wise to check up on his team before going to the cells. Making sure that his teammates were okay, Naruto started climbing towards the higher levels of the tower. Where the prison cells were. The dark stone of the corridors lent a depressive feeling to the whole place, but the lighting in the form of faintly glowing seals were something that he found very interesting. Idly running various theories through his mind as to how the deed was done, he didn't notice that he reached the prison until he bumped into the back of a guard. "Watch where you're." "Oh, it's you, Naruto." Naruto raised his head only to be met by the porcelain mask of Cat, otherwise known as Yugao Yuzuki. "Hello, Cat-san," he replied in a friendly tone, minding her mask. "Is Ibiki here?" "Hi." "Go right in," she quickly replied, letting him through into the interrogation room. The small room that Naruto now found himself in was simple. Stone floor, stone walls, and only a lamp to give light. In the middle was a single wooden table and 4 chairs. In one sat Kintsuchi, in the other across from her was Ibiki Marino. On one side was Hiruzen Sarutobi and on the other an empty chair awaiting him. Sarutobi smiled in greeting, while Ibiki merely stared at Kin. Naruto kept quiet and sat down on the free chair. The tension in the air was palpable as the predator stared down its prey, although from the way the two were looking at each other it wasn't really sure which was which. Thankfully, said tension was easily broken by the loud sound of a door being slammed into place, courtesy of Yugao. Sarutobi coughed, drawing the attention of all three present to himself. Naruto was surprised at what he saw. Gone was the kindly old man that he loved, a grandfather. In his place was the professor, the god of Shinobi, the third Hokage in all his might, a veritable titan whose indomitable will imposed itself on whatever dared go against him and whose cunning intellect making enough calculations within a moment to make a Nara weep in jealousy. Naruto's reaction was a mixture of surprise and awe to what he had seen. He knew that inside there was still the care and kindness, but he was once more the legend that had struck fear into the hearts of Konoha's enemies. He couldn't help but grin. "So young lady, are you willing to cooperate?" he asked in a stern voice laced with just enough killing intent to show how serious he was. "Hi," she quickly replied. However, unlike before, there was a hint of hope in her voice. "I see. Ibiki here will be in charge of your questioning. He will make sure that all you're telling us is the truth. If we are both pleased, you will be placed on probation for 3 months and after that, accepted as a citizen of Konoha. If you're still willing to be a shinobi, you will also be offered a position. Fair?" "Hi. More than fair, good. Now Naruto, I expect a full report on the incident as soon as this part of the exams is over. Ask Kakashi for help on it." Sarutobi quickly explained before getting up and leaving the three of them behind. Naruto got up to leave as well, but he felt a strong hand pushing down his shoulder. "Stay." For a few more minutes, Ibiki shortly said in his usual gruff voice, "There's something I want to talk to you about." Nodding to the scarred man, Naruto sat down. Kin on the other hand just kept silent through the whole ordeal. She had a chance. She could actually stay alive. So much for the Leaf Nin being heartless bastards, as Orochimaru put it, she happily mused. Ibiki pulled out a small paper and passed it to Naruto. "Look at it later, then tell me if you can break it without killing the person it's on," he explained. Naruto barely noticed the minute tone of annoyance in his voice, annoyance at the fact that the thing on the paper was beyond his skills. Naruto nodded once more, and placed the paper into his pocket. "Now that that's settled, take a seat and let's chat," Ibiki finally added, his face turning expressionless as he returned to his job. Naruto sat on his chair, and let his additional sense do the job of reading them as he closed his eyes. Sasuke woke up to a splitting headache. Loudly groaning, he opened his eyes to an unfamiliar ceiling and an even more unfamiliar bed. He turned to his sides and noticed 2 more beds in the room, on one of which was Sakura, peacefully sleeping. Rubbing his aching temples, Sasuke slowly got up. Taking a short look around, he noticed all of his equipment carefully sorted on a chair next to his bed. Sakura's equipment was similarly sorted and Naruto's was mostly missing, except for his red coat which was lying on the 3rd bed. "So he brought us here and walked off, typical," he grinned. This was probably the tower, and since they had not 2, but 4 scrolls, he was pretty sure they passed. Well, perhaps taking another nap might not be such a bad idea. Within his temporary office, Sarutobi once more grumbled at the sheer amount of trouble the exams brought up. However, the whole mess had its brighter points, and Naruto was the one responsible for most of them. He pointed out a spy during the first phase of the exams, brought in a very useful source of information during the second. Now that his former student Jiraiya was here as well with additional information about a possible invasion, he had all the information needed to stop Orochimaru before he got a chance to do something. But there was a bit that seriously annoyed him. One of his Anbu caught an assassin going for Naruto. Under Ibiki's tender mercies, it took him no longer than 15 minutes to spill his guts as to who paid him. It was definitely time to remind the civilian council just who ran this village. And he had such devious ideas. For the first time in months, Naruto felt truly tired. Having climbed up the outer walls to the roof of the tower, Naruto watched the night sky, the thousands of stars even clearer now that he was away from the village lights. The silvery sphere of the full moon cast its light on the troubled boy as he gazed at his right palm. Within it, placed over his oath scar, was a simple medallion, a silver snowflake attached to a simple silver chain, a parting gift from a friend. If one looked closer, he would see tears welling up in the boy's eyes. Beside him lay an oversized sword, its surface glistening in the moonlight. Sighing sadly, Naruto returned the necklace to its rightful place around his neck and lay down to watch the stars one more time, trying hard not to think of what he had learned during the interrogation. The news were disturbing, but then again, his world was not one known for maintaining the sanity of its inhabitants. One other thing, or rather, person returned to his thoughts constantly. He made a small smile as he thought of her, but decided that as much as he enjoyed it, it really wasn't the time for daydreaming. His thoughts once more returned to the matters at hand. Now that the old man knows, what do we do about it? He asked no one in particular, before sighing again. He really did that too much these days. There were better things to do, such as working on his seals. A devious smirk crossed his lips. He still had 2 days of free time. Time skip, 3 days later, the end of the second part of the exams, 8 o'clock, Tower in the Forest of Death, ground level. It was finally time. The test ended with a grand total of 8 teams reaching the tower in time. The remaining 16 teams were either dead, late, or gave up. All of the Konoha rookies were there, teams 7, 8, 9 and 10. The Sand team was there as well, joined by a single team from Mist and Stone, and much to Naruto's surprise, the team from Sound that his team personally dismantled. He smelled the old man's interference in that, but he always knew what he was doing, these days more often than before. He threw a curious glance at the Kage booth, where he spotted an unusual figure at the Hokage's side apart from Anko. A large man, with long spiky white hair and red markings beneath his eyes. Thanks to his recent studies, he was a bit more aware of Konoha's finest. That's Jiraiya the Toad Sage. Wonder what he's doing here? He also noticed an unnaturally large grin on the old Hokage's face. His further musings were interrupted by the arrival of a man in a Chunin vest, another proctor for the exams. The 24 remaining genin instantly calmed down. Greeting, cough, my name is Geku Heiate, and I will be the proctor for this part of the exams. Before you can proceed, cough, to the third part of the Chunin exams, there will be a round of, cough, preliminary matches, according to the rules. The screen, he points to a large screen on the wall behind him, will show the pairings. At that point, names started flashing over the screen until it showed a pair Inuzuka Kiba vs Rock Lee. Everyone, cough, except the 2 contestants leave the arena. The other genin quickly evacuated the arena, climbing to the stands that surrounded it. Naruto decided to watch this battle very carefully. Lee maybe was unable to use chakra, but he was a taijutsu prodigy, something that he himself couldn't claim. Kiba on the other hand wouldn't be as much of a problem. Heiate stood back as Lee and Kiba stared each other down. This is going to be an easy one, Akamaru? That's the guy who can't even use chakra, Kiba jokingly asked, while his dog barked in response. Naruto made a mental note of the fact. Lee merely laughed before replying, let's have a good match, begin. Heiate shouted before jumping back. Let's go, partner. Kiba shouted and dropped into his stance, hands on the floor in a half-crouch. Akamaru jumped on his back, in preparation for his family's jutsu. However, Lee wasn't going to wait for Kiba to finish his jutsu and instantly charged him. Not bad, Kiba-san, but you're too slow, Lee added as he slammed his fist into Kiba's face. Kiba loudly cursed as he flew back and slammed into the wall. Kiba picked himself up from the rubble, and his canine partner quickly joined him. Without stopping for a moment, he pulled out a number of smoke bombs. Lee once more charged, planning to stop him, but it was too late. Kiba had already dodged, and only his voice could be heard from the smoke man-beast clone. He shouted the name of the first jutsu, immediately followed by the second for legs jutsu. Lee jumped out of the smoke and stood perfectly still in his stance, awaiting Kiba to come out. The smoke cleared, and Lee was surprised to see not one, but two completely feral-looking copies of Kiba. Unlike Lee, however, Naruto, along with several others, didn't fail to notice that Akamaru was nowhere in sight. Just as Lee was about to attack, his two opponents leaped, shouting, "Dual-piercing Fang." Much to his dismay, Lee found out that he could only dodge the two figures spinning at high speed, bouncing off of every surface they came into contact with. Come on, how long can they maintain this? He mentally asked himself, as he kept dodging blow after blow, waiting for a good opportunity to strike. Up in the stands, Kurenai was slightly worried for her student. Guy was not one known for doing training halfway, and because his team had a full year's advantage over hers, Kiba could be in a lot of trouble. As for Guy, he was merely smirking at his student's patience. He has improved a lot. He watched him wait for just the right moment before he slammed his foot into one of the tornadoes, apparently Akamaru, as he poofed back into a dog as soon as he hit the ground. "Damn it!" Kiba shouted as he stopped right next to a whimpering and heavily bruised Akamaru. "Sorry boy," he said in an unusually gentle tone as he lifted him, never dropping his guard in the process. Lee waited for him to finish whatever he was doing. Unlike some, he had a very good idea of what the term camaraderie meant. This was a test, no need to do more harm than necessary. Kiba gritted his teeth. He underestimated his opponent. Rock Lee turned out to be a lot stronger than he expected, and he wasn't skilled enough to fight him and win, and now because of his mistake his partner Akamaru had been badly hurt. With him he might have stood a chance, but like this. Unless we both take one of the pills. What do you think, Akamaru? He whispered to the pup, who growled in response, causing the Inuzuka heir to make a toothy grin. Right boy. On the other side of the arena, Lee noticed that something was about to happen. Kiba and Akamaru both got up, and Kiba pulled out a pair of small bluish pills, popping one into his mouth and tossing the other to Akamaru. He charged towards the duo, planning to take them out before they had a chance to do whatever they planned. Kiba smirked. "Good thing I kept a few more smoke bombs stashed," he thought, throwing all of them to the ground. The thick cloud covered the minor changes that came over him and the not-so-minor ones that came over Akamaru, such as his now blood-red fur. This time around, Lee charged straight into the cloud. He couldn't find either of them. Kiba was grinning wildly as he and Akamaru both easily dodged Lee thanks to their sense of smell. The bowl-shaped boy's scent was so easy to follow it was ridiculous. "I have to thank Naruto later on for all those pranks we pulled," he thought as he started the next phase of his plan. Within the smoke cloud, Lee was now battered by even faster attacks than before. As much as he kept blocking, there was no way to keep it up with both of them like this. "Sensei!" Lee shouted. A lot of people turned to Guy, who was now smiling. "You have my permission." Guy shouted back, and within second a loud thump was heard from the smoke cloud as cracks extended from it. Kiba's entire team was now worried. "I'm sorry to say this, Kurenai, but your pupil doesn't stand a chance now," Guy said in an uncharacteristically serious tone. Kurenai sighed sadly, well aware that he was right, but still hoping that he would somehow win. Back in the arena, Lee vanished, moving at such speeds that the smoke dissipated. Kiba and Akamaru stood back to back, claws ready to strike their ridiculously fast opponent. This time, Kiba was on the receiving end of Lee's strikes. "Leaf rising wind." Lee shouted as he slammed his leg into Kiba's face, launching him into the air. He quickly followed the strike with a leap, rising above Kiba before slamming him down with his fist into the gut. Moments later Kiba crashed into the ground, leaving a small crater, alive but almost unconscious. He looked at the proctor, who simply nodded. Akamaru had returned to his normal form and was nuzzling Kiba's hand, whimpering sadly, "Winner Rock Lee." Height shouted, only to cough afterward. "That was a good fight, my youthful friend," Lee respectfully said while helping Kiba up, supporting him on the shoulder as the medics arrived to pick him up. "Damn." Kiba weakly muttered, "I wasn't even close, that's nothing some training can't fix," Lee said happily. "If you're willing I can help you out once the exams are over," he added cheerfully. Kiba watched his former opponent in disbelief, before smiling himself. "That would be cool," he laughed back while they both left the arena. Up in the stands both Guy and Kurenai were now smiling at the pair. As soon as the arena was cleared, the screen started going through names again, only to stop at the next pair: Sasuke Uchiha vs Mikashir Tokai. "Will the contestants please step down into the arena?" Height called. Both Sasuke and the Stone Genin started going down. "Play it safe," Sasuke heard Naruto's voice from right behind him, before giving a thumb up in understanding. As soon as they were both in the arena, Sasuke took the time before the match started to analyze his opponent. He was slightly taller than him with short and spiky brown hair and unusually cold red eyes, which seemed to size him up. He was dressed unusually for a ninja, wearing black pants and jacket all covered with small interconnected metallic plates. A lot of muscle. He probably relies on strength rather than speed, but that wicked staff of his might be a problem along with that armor. No telling what kind of jutsu he uses though. Glad with the info he gathered, Sasuke placed his hand on the hilt of his sword, ready to start the match. Mikashir took a similar stance with his staff. "Begin." Both genin jumped back instantly. There were no taunts, no talking whatsoever as the battle began. Sasuke barely had the time to notice his opponent going through hand seals. It was too late to use the Sharingan to copy them or identify the jutsu. "Earth Release, Stone Spikes," Mikashir shouted as he slammed his right palm into the ground while holding his staff above him with the other hand. Sasuke almost failed to jump and avoid the spikes that were now covering the entire arena floor apart from the small area where Mikashir was standing. Still floating in the air, he noticed that the spikes had receded back into the earth as his opponent charged and leaped towards him, using chakra to propel himself even faster. Activating his Sharingan, he started flashing through hand seals for a jutsu of his own, Fire Release, Grand Fireball, he cried as he exhaled the large orb of flame aimed straight at his opponent who had leaped at him, hoping to take him while he was in the air. Up in the stands, Kakashi, Naruto, and Sakura cheered on for their teammate as the fireball slammed into his opponent. Sasuke quickly landed on the ground and drew out his wakizashi, once more using his gloves to charge it with electricity. Mikashir hit the ground hard, but recovered quickly enough to parry the blow with his staff. Now for the first time, Sasuke had a chance to see the staff up close, and leaped back quickly when he noticed the seals on it glowing, barely avoiding the counter-attack that slammed into the ground. The cracks that appeared beneath the staff gave him a good idea as to why it wouldn't be healthy to get hit. If at first you don't succeed, he mused as he pulled out a dozen shuriken connected to ninja wire. He smirked as he started throwing them around, content that his opponent couldn't see the wire. The shuriken flew straight at his opponent, who decided to dodge rather than block them, much like he had anticipated. I didn't even charge them this time, and he still dodged. Now for the second salvo, taking out 8 kunai, equally connected to wires. He started throwing them one by one as his opponent kept moving and dodging them. What Mikashir failed to notice was that Sasuke had been making a literal web of highly conductive ninja wire around him. Now, it was only a matter of him hitting a few of them and getting tangled up. Were all the Uchiha that pitiful? Mikashir asked in an arrogant tone as he prepared to charge his opponent. Sasuke suppressed the urge to charge at him, opting to wait and shock the bastard. "Come on, you're just standing there, make this at least a bit more fun," he kept taunting. Back in the stands, only Naruto was still smirking, as he was the only one perfectly aware what Sasuke was doing. Kakashi gave him an inquisitive look, to which he only responded with, "Watch and enjoy." The opportune moment finally arrived as Mikashir charged at Sasuke, who jumped to the side, literally entangling his foe in ninja wire. Drawing out the spool to which all of the wires were connected, he firmly grasped it with his right hand before pumping as much chakra as he could into the gloves. The results were immediate as the wire crackled with the electricity that surged through it and into Mikashi's body. Sasuke dropped on his knee as the exhaustion caught up with him. Thankfully, his plan worked, and thanks to the plates on him, the gloves shocked him even worse than they would have normally, if the smoke rising from his lightly burnt body was any indication. Proctor. I think he's unable to continue, Sasuke weakly said, catching the coughing man's attention. Right. Winner Sasuke Uchiha. The other members of Team 7 cheered for the victorious Uchiha as he climbed back up. Nice fight Sasuke, Naruto said in his now usual serious tone. His friend merely nodded as he sat down to see who was going to fight next. Once he saw the name, the raven-haired youth smiled. This was going to be fun. Naruto Uzumaki vs Tenten Higurashi. Now this is going to be entertaining, Kakashi jokingly noted. Guy threw him a surprised look. Wasn't Naruto your weakest student? He asked, while Kakashi threw back an eye smile. I might have forgotten to update his records, he lied. In truth, Naruto had asked him to keep them the way he was before the wave mission, with only some minimal updates so it would seem realistic, while he and the Hokage were kept perfectly aware of his skills via a second record that was kept safely on the old man's person at all times. Guy ruefully shook his head at his rival. But after that, Kakashi's expression turned serious. I hope you trained her well, Guy, he said, for her sake. Down. In the arena, Naruto and Tenten stared at each other as Hay-8 approached to start the match. Naruto was perfectly calm, unlike his opponent who seemed somewhat angry for some reason. Do you have an issue with me? He asked in his perfectly calm voice. However, he quickly put two and two together when he noticed she was eyeing his sword, then watching him dismissively. So, she thinks I'm some idiot who got his hands on a strong sword and doesn't know how to use it, eh? Asking the old man to keep my records a secret was a better idea than I thought. Do you even know how to hold a sword? She asked him, to which he only smiled as he placed one hand on the hilt of the once more bandaged blade, but quickly decided against it. I'd rather see how good you are first before deciding whether I'll need the sword, he added while he placed his hand on one of the seals on his belt. Begin. Hay-8 shouted before jumping back. Tenten leaped back as well while Naruto merely unsealed one of his special seal kunai, activating the chakra shell around it and using his molding skills to extend the blade a bit by adding his own chakra to it. He momentarily reminded himself of what he found out about his opponent Higurashi Tenten, weapon specialist, no other notable skills apart from the academy ones. Known to carry a lot of weapons. This should prove interesting. Let's see how her aim goes against my radiance. Naruto kept his calm smile as he saw Tenten begin throwing a salvo of kunai. He stood perfectly calm until the kunai reached the edge of his sphere. He calmly closed his eyes as he sidestepped all 10 of them. With his free hand, he lowered his hitayat over his eyes. Kakashi was now worried, but not for Naruto as Guy thought. Kakashi, what is that boy doing? Sigh. Thanks to his unconventional training, he has sharper reflexes than most chunin, let alone genin. Dodging and parrying 100 projectiles would be no challenge for him. Next to Kakashi, Sasuke was laughing. Sakura merely watched with a smile on her face. And to think he's not even using jutsu, a stoic Shino commented from the sides. He had seen Naruto in action once, and if nothing else, he certainly wasn't worried for the blonde. He knew how to take care of himself. In the arena, Naruto kept dodging wave after wave of weapons, until he finally decided to test his kunai and the usual variant. Focusing on an incoming kunai, he sliced straight at it, only to be surprised when the shell of chakra broke off from the blade and cut straight through the kunai, before flying off towards Tenten. That was unexpected, he thought out loud, causing many to sweat drop on the other side. Tenten was getting worried as well. She had tried most of her tactics on her opponent and each and every one had failed. She had expected an idiot of an opponent, but he was no joke. in fact he was beating her blindfolded. "I'm afraid you're at a disadvantage," Naruto tried to explain in his infuriatingly calm voice. Sasuke and Kakashi, along with a few others, recognized how this manner of speech perfectly resembled Itachi. "You see, I've been training some of my skills by blocking or dodging vast numbers of projectiles at a time. So without going all out, you don't stand a chance of hitting me," Tenten silently cursed as she planned her next move. Naruto was apparently willing to wait for her. "Well, that's gonna bite him in the back," she gingerly thought as she prepared 2 scrolls. Picking up the minute chakra signature of her scrolls, Naruto lifted one side of his Hitayat, putting it very much like Kakashi, who in turn felt very proud of his student. Up in the stands, Shikamaru, Shino and Neji carefully studied Naruto's moves and tactics, each trying to figure out what the blonde enigma was doing. Out of them, Shino was the least surprised, but the only one who knew what the result of this match would be for sure was Shikamaru. "She's going to lose, and badly," he quietly said. In the Kage box, 3 figures watched Naruto's fight with great interest. Anko was enjoying herself, while Sarutobi merely watched the boy with pride. The only one who was amazed was Jiraiya, who hadn't expected that much skill from the boy. He was also the only one to notice the dome of chakra that covered the entire arena. "The gaki is good," he muttered. "You have no idea," Anko added while giggling, which promptly caused the two to take a step away from her. "Scrolls?" Naruto asked with very little emotion. Inside he was giddy to see another scroll technique at work. Tenten smirked at him, confident that her move would land at least a few blows. "Just don't get surprised when it kills you," she added in a serious voice. Now very interested, Naruto lifted the other end from his eyes. He watched the girl pull out a small pair of scrolls, holding them both in one hand before unrolling in the air and smearing her blood on both. "What's she gonna use? Chakra converters? Exploding seals? A ton of weapons? Damn, I wanna know. He's done for, trained or not, there's no way he can avoid that move," Guy confidently said, while Kakashi shook his head. "He hasn't even begun to fight, Guy." The scrolls instantly began releasing smoke and flew up in the air, quickly followed by Tenten. "Secret technique, twin rising dragons," she shouted as the 2 smoke dragons rose with her, only to glow brightly for a moment and unleash a veritable wall of metal heading straight in his direction. Naruto's eyes widened for a moment. He couldn't possibly block and dodge all of those with only the kunai. Cursing his bad judgment of his opponent, he quickly plunged a decent amount of his chakra into the sword on his back, the familiar sound of chakra shredding cloth signifying that the sword was free. The feedback from the field of radiance was incredible. There had to be hundreds. No, nearly 1,000 projectiles heading straight at him, quickly funneling as much chakra as possible to his arms. To increase speed, he started blocking each and every projectile. "Damn, I didn't expect this many projectiles. Wait, what's this behind them? Wires? Shit." He mentally cursed as he began cutting down the fine assortment of shuriken, kunai, senbon. Even usually non-throwable weapons were added to the mix, which he found out as he sidestepped an oversized hammer. With every move, the shell of chakra around the Kubikiri Hocho kept shredding the ninja wire attached to the weapons, so that when the barrage was finally over, less than 100 projectiles still had their strings attached. Tenten tried pulling them up, but they too were soon disabled. She watched her opponent with newfound respect. He had blocked and dodged his way through her strongest attack with nothing but a giant sword. No jutsu whatsoever. "How?" she asked while getting up from the floor. "Training. Lots and lots of downright scary training. The last time I tried blocking projectiles there were over 100 of them, so this is a new experience for me," he said with a small, but genuine smile, which soon vanished when he noticed the handle of a kama sticking out of his leg, the blade having pierced straight through. Cursing for a moment, he pulled it out, throwing the bloodied weapon aside as his hand was encompassed by green chakra. "He can use medical jutsu as well?" Kurenai asked Kakashi, now even more curious about the blonde. Frankly, I don't think there's an area he can't learn. Kakashi answered in his serious voice. Inside he was damn proud of the boy for showing all of them just how capable he was. The wound on his leg healed, Naruto decided it was time for a little showing off. Since you were kind enough to show me your technique with scrolls, it's only fair I do the same, he said with a wide smile. Tenten suddenly felt the temperature drop by a few degrees. Up in the stands, Kakashi once more looked at the boy with wide eyes. He perfectly remembered what that move of his did to a fully trained enemy ninja. The girl wouldn't stand a chance if he hit her with it. He only hoped that Naruto knew what he was doing. Guy, remember when I told you that I hoped you trained her well? Yes? Guy said/asked. Well, the shit is about to hit the fan. He started fighting seriously, Kakashi nervously said. Tenten watched as Naruto pulled out a set of 3 scrolls, each of them in a different color. One was brown, the other white and the third red. The brown one was attached to a kunai. Ready, Tenten-san? This is not going to be pretty, 'cause I finally finished this move. She swallowed hard at his words as he began the sequence. He rapidly bit both his thumbs before throwing the red and white scrolls in the air, unfurling them in the process, and smearing his blood along both. A faint shimmer of blue was seen extending from the end of each scroll following to his extended thumbs as the scrolls rolled back up. In the meantime, Naruto started going through several hand seals at great speed, before slamming the third scroll into the ground. Secret Art, Triune Hunters. Once again, for a moment nothing happened as all but a few seemed disappointed. However, Naruto's team along with Team 8 and Neji all knew what was going on. Neji, thanks to his Byakugan, and the others from experience. Tenten was simply nervous and worried as a strong pressure began building up, it being nothing more than a sudden release of a massive amount of chakra. However, the eyes of all of the spectators widened as the final effect of the jutsu became apparent as a trio of foxes manifested themselves from the elements. The first was a billowy white form that extended from the white scroll, visible only thanks to the color of the ground. The second was a flaming red fox with orange eyes, incredibly reminiscent of Kyubi burst from the red one. And finally the third rose from the ground, completely brown, its hard earthen body devouring the third scrolls. Jiraiya watched, feeling like time had gone back to almost 30 years ago when Minato started learning to do seals. Naruto was just like him, practical, but very creative and capable of thinking outside the box. He felt ashamed for not being there for the boy and enraged at the stupidity of the villagers that harmed him. Jiraiya was perfectly aware that he was out there keeping those who would hunt down Naruto for the Kyubi, but still he could only hope that the boy would find it in his heart to forgive him for not coming sooner. A life lived in hell wasn't truly worth much. The crowd stood quiet in shock as Naruto took the sword in his right hand and pointed it towards Tenten while the thin strands of chakra went from his left hand to the 3 foxes. Now, let's get this party started, he shouted, before smiling at his opponent. Tenten drew out a small scroll and unsealed a fine-looking katana from it, falling into a, to Naruto, unfamiliar stance. Do I play with her and humiliate her, or do I simply beat her down fast? Naruto pondered for a minute as a kunai with an exploding tag flew his way. Fast it is, he quickly charged forth, the massive sword not slowing him down in the least as he moved into the reach of his enemy's sword. Tenten tried to stab him before he managed to bring the sword down, but found that the brown fox was nowhere in sight, and that her sword was no longer moving. Looking down, she found the fox holding the sword down with its stone jaws clenched tightly around it. She closed her eyes, waiting for the blow that was about to come. Do you yield? Came a cold voice, but there was no pain. She opened her eyes. The massive blade of the Kubikiri Hocho was an inch from her neck and the remaining 2 foxes were aiming at her heart. But neither of those 2 was what scared her into silence. It was a pair of brutally cold and calculated eyes that stared at her. I asked, do you yield? He repeated the question. Hi, she stuttered. In An instant, the coldness from both voice and eyes vanished, leaving a calm but happy face. She fell down to her knees, exhausted, while Naruto looked untouched by the match apart from a few holes in his clothes. Dismissing the elemental foxes, he picked the girl up along with her sword and carried her off to the stands above while Heiei shouted, "Winner Naruto Uzumaki," up in the Kage box. All three looked astonished at the blonde boy. All three could have sworn it was Minato Namikaze standing there that one minute when he asked the question. There was no killing intent and it was still scary enough. Jiraiya was also impressed by the boy's knowledge of seals, as the three foxes were created by nothing more than a powerful seal array. One he didn't know. "Saruto by Sensei, you didn't by any chance teach him that?" he asked, not really expecting a positive answer. "No," replied a downright happy Hokage, "he made it himself with knowledge from a certain book I gave him." Jiraiya smiled for the boy. "Sensei, have you told him about his?" "Not yet, but I intend to as soon as this part of the exam is over." "It's about time he knew," Jiraiya sadly sighed. "I think he'll give you a chance." Jiraiya. "He's a lot smarter than anyone would have guessed, but he's still the kind boy all of us here have grown to love." Anko listened to the two talk, but for one reason or another, she had a rather good idea of whom they were talking about. "Seriously, just remove the whisker mark and he's a spitting image of him." She also felt very proud of Naruto, and, although she'd never admit it, she was thinking about him a lot recently. She was also deeply surprised to feel jealous of the fact that he was carrying the weapon. Girl, why the hell am I feeling jealous now? She'd have to talk to Kurenai about it, but for now cheering for the blonde Gaki's victory was something she was more than willing to do. Naruto walked up the stands carrying Tenten before putting her down safely. As soon as he did that, his team moved in to congratulate him. But before he did anything, he held his hand to the girl. "It's been a fun match." He started running the back of his head while smiling sheepishly. "Would you mind sparring from time to time?" he asked in a very happy voice. Tenten looked at him strangely, but only nodded before smiling herself and shaking his hand. If anything, she had to admit that his smile was infectious. Guy took care of his student before nodding respectfully to Naruto, who simply smiled as he rejoined his team and received the due congratulations. He was, after all, going to the finals. Before finally settling down to watch the next match, Naruto looked at the aged Kage and his two companions who were both cheering for him, and as much as he was happy for making the old man proud, something about Anko's smiling made his heart flutter. Out of all the matches that would be fought that day, the one Naruto won would have the greatest impact. His first real display of skill left many stunned or speechless. The dead last and dobe of his generation had not only beaten an older ninja, but had used something that was clearly a new and most likely self-created seal technique, something that wasn't seen from the times of the fourth, while fighting blindfolded for most of the fight. And he didn't even break a sweat from it all. Naruto, on the other hand, took the attention in stride, joking with his friends and answering all questions pertaining his skill vaguely enough, that they couldn't actually learn anything from his answers. The exchange only lasted for a few minutes before Heiei once more got his bearings and announced the next match, the pairings now clearly visible on the screen. Ino Yamanaka vs Mirai. "Will Ino Yamanaka and Mirai enter the arena?" Heiei loudly exclaimed, without coughing this time. Said pair quickly descended. Choji and Shikamaru wished Ino good luck, but the girl was worried. Mirai was someone she knew nothing about, except for the fact that she was from Mist, and that she could only see her green eyes. Her body was covered by a flowing silver-gray robe along with a scarf that covered her face and a wide-rimmed straw hat. A pair of plated leather gloves covered her hands. No tools or weapons were visible. "Begin!" Heiei once more shouted, idly wondering if he should get it on tape for the next match, while he was jumping back. Steeling herself, Ino pulled out a kunai, ready. She prepared herself to try and possess her enemy's body, but then she noticed a dragon heading towards her. She lost consciousness as soon as it struck. Up in the stands, only 3 genin managed to figure out what happened, although the jounin had a much easier time. Genjutsu, and 2 in rapid succession. Naruto found himself analyzing the moves, and the simple but brutally effective logic that brought down Ino Yamanaka. The first one was completely sealless, creating just enough cover to conceal the hand seals for the second one, which created something in her mind, while Mirai shined right behind her and slammed the butt of her kunai into base of her skull, instantly knocking her out. Shit, that girl doesn't play around, Naruto worriedly thought. At those speeds, if he didn't have his additional sense, he wouldn't be able to win. Winner Mirai, Hey-8 quickly announced as the girl disappeared in a swirl of mist, reappearing in the stands next to her two teammates and sensei. Now there's a good idea, Naruto thought, inwardly smiling and making plans to make his own version. The next match was announced as soon as Ino was taken from the arena by her two teammates. Dosu Kinyuta vs Choji Akimichi. Within the arena, Dosu was sweating bullets. Without his beloved gauntlet to amplify his skills with sound, this battle would be a lot harder. Thankfully, his opponent was weak against his attack. Of course that means nothing if he's out before he can land a blow on to the fat boy's body. Choji was somewhat unsure of his enemy. He hadn't seen him fight, but he heard from Naruto about him. Out of all the rookies, Choji was the person that probably spent the least time planning and analyzing, but he was no fool. His family helped his training, and Shikamaru had helped him with planning. It wasn't much, but it would do. Begin. Dosu immediately jumped back, trying to figure out how to best strike his opponent as he pulled out a kunai. His opponent eyed him warily as cocked his hand back. Partial expansion jutsu, Choji mentally commanded as he molded his chakra. It was one of the points his father hammered in, to use his clan jutsu without any hand seals or words, otherwise it's easily predicted. His enemy had little time to move as a massive fist suddenly descended on his position. He rolled to the left, only to get slammed into the wall by the oversized appendage. Dosu cursed, loudly uttering a string of obscenities as he dug himself out from the human-shaped hole in the wall. He had relied too much on his gauntlet and now his skills deteriorated. No matter, I still have a few other tricks, he mused as the bandages that covered his face fell off to reveal a perfectly normal face and a different colored eye. Up in the stands a certain pair of genin from sound had their eyes twitching. The young Akimichi was getting nervous. His main strength was taijutsu, with only the academy techniques as backup. He inwardly cursed and promised himself to learn a bit more outside the clan techniques he had learned so far. Seeing that his opponent was up to something, he changed his plan. Quickly reducing his arms to their normal size, he pulled out a kunai with an exploding tag. He had actually asked why he needed it before the exam started. A quick distraction was all he needed. Dosu was surprised when Choji stopped using his arms to try and hit him. What the hell is he doing? His thoughts were soon answered by the hissing sound of a kunai flying straight at him. He rapidly rolled to the right, dodging the explosion only to run into another. He barely recovered, only to see a giant ball rolling towards him. He tried to move, but it was too late as Choji rolled over him, the sheer weight of the body slamming him into the ground with many, many broken bones. He had failed, again. Thank Kami that I got a good deal this time round. He thought as his consciousness faded. The last thing he heard was the proctor announcing his opponent's victory. Quite a few were surprised at Choji's victory, and a veil of silence covered the arena before the sound of two pairs of hands clapping could be heard. Naruto and Shikamaru were congratulating their friend, quickly joined by Asuma, Sasuke, Sakura and all the others. Choji smiled sheepishly before climbing up into the stands to a congratulating crowd. After Dosu got shipped out of the arena by the medics, Hey-8 one more walked in, waiting for the screen to show the next pair Sanmura Tokai vs. Kankuro Sabaku. Will the contestant, please come into the arena, Hey-8 announced as the two nins slowly walked down. Since this was the first match without participants from Konoha, everyone watched carefully. Both contestants took their time to study each other as they entered the arena. Sanmura was a wiry youth, barely 12, but lithe and agile. The two kunai strapped to the arms of his brown leather jacket were apparently the only weapons he carried. Kankuro was unconcerned by his brown-haired opponent, although the menacing red eyes were something that at least mildly concerned him. Sanmaru lazily observed the nin dressed in what he could only describe as a catsuit. The wrapped-up bundle on his back on the other hand might be something to be concerned about. He smirked evilly as he pulled out the kunai. "Begin." And, nothing happened. Both parties stood perfectly still, waiting for the other to move first. With another smirk, Sanmaru started going through hand seals. Deliberately slow. Kankuro watched his enemy suspiciously, trying to figure out just what the hell was he doing. His eyes widened when the earth of the arena began crumbling as a large draconic head rose. A pair of topaz yellow eyes were staring at him menacingly as the dragon head roared and began spitting balls of mud. Silently cursing his own stupidity, Kankuro dodged the balls, opting to throw a hail of poison senbon at his opponent, planning to keep his other weapon a secret for as long as possible. He also cursed himself for not carrying the second one to this part of the exam. Sanmaru was having the time of his psychotic life. If there was one thing he truly enjoyed doing, it was fighting. And killing. And a few other even less than sane things. Unlike his older sibling Mikashir, he had no issues when it came to killing people. And he was damn good at what he liked doing. With an insane smile, his arms began moving at crazy speeds as he flashed through hand seals before slamming his hands into the ground. Earth release, obscuring pillars, he shouted as a large number of 2 feet thick stone pillars rose from the ground. There was no more than a meter of space between pillars, just enough for a certain psychotic nin to keep dashing through. Kankuro cursed yet again at underestimating his enemy. The boy was no pushover, and by the way he started moving, using the pillars as a running surface, he'd be hard-pressed to keep up. Time to start cheating, he jokingly thought as he pulled a substitution jutsu with his bundle. While seemingly nothing happened, he was already putting a plan into motion. One of the tricks he managed to pick up from his brother without the redhead knowing it, was the third eye, which he used very well in combination with his puppets. It also made the trick he was using now easy. Sanmaru kept jumping from pillar to pillar, and if he wasn't safe inside the bundle with his chakra suppressed, he'd be worried. Just let the little psycho get close enough. The kid's almost as crazy as Gaara. Waiting for the perfect moment to strike, Kankuro almost missed the fact that one of the pillars went crashing down on him. Sanmaru laughed as he leaped to pierce Kankuro's throat, only to hit hard wood. The insane smile instantly faded as a barrage of senbon, poison senbon in fact, flew out of Kankuro's mouth and slammed into his chest. Within a second, Kankuro's face peeled off, only to be replaced by that of a wooden puppet. Sanmaru fell to the ground, dead. Winner Sabaku Kankuro. Height shouted as a team of ninja moved in to clear up the arena for the next match and remove the corpse of Sanmaru Tokai. A few people were mildly concerned at the killing, but most of the genin didn't as much as blink. Death was a part of their lives, one they knew they'd all face eventually for the first time. Silence was the aftermath of a match as Height once more prepared to announce the next pairing, Nakai Kishijin vs Gaara Sabaku, but before the match could start, Nakai shouted, "I forfeit." As much he wanted to fight, Nakai had the gruesome opportunity to see just how Gaara fought in the Forest of Death. He knew he stood no chance of surviving, regardless of how good his sword skills were. Being crushed in sand was not on his to-do list. Gaara looked disappointed and murmured something about mother wanting blood. Thanks to his chakra-enhanced hearing, Naruto shuddered at the comment. For some reason, the idea of calling a 100-meter-tall bloodthirsty raccoon demon mother was disturbing. Coughing again, Height announced the next match. Same time, ANBU headquarters, Interrogation and Torture Division, prison cells. Wind howled through the darkened corridors of the underground prison level of the infamous ANBU headquarters. The IT division that ran this part of the building kept the place in optimal condition for breaking prisoners, something that made their job much easier. At the same time with the preliminary matches in the Forest of Death, a trio of shadowy figures moved along, checking each door. "Number 16, muttered one of them, a deep male voice belonging to a man in his early 20s wearing an eagle mask. "That's Mizuki." "We don't need him right now," commented a female voice this time. The cat-masked Anbu continued to the next cell. "This is the one we're looking for." The remaining two nodded as Cat opened the door. Inside was an unusual cell. Normally, prison cells here only had the essentials, a small surface for sleeping and a hole for waste. However, this cell, along with several others, were kept for prisoners who were kept here for their own protection for the time they needed to be off the face of the earth. The occupant of this cell was given a decent bed, along with a desk with a chair, a small lamp and a large stack of books, with subjects mostly concerning medicine. The occupant was one Yakushi Kabuto, medical prodigy and unwilling spy, much in thanks to a seal placed on the back of his neck by his former master, Sasori of the Red Sands, only to have it changed by Orochimaru. The seal had a simple effect. A keyword was uttered along with the addition of small amount of chakra. The bearer of the seal was placed under the direct control of its master. Outside that, the person remained completely normal. And to make things worse, the seal was near impossible to detect. Had they not searched his entire body for seals, they wouldn't have found it. If it weren't for Orochimaru's records from his time with the Anbu, it wouldn't have been possible to identify it. The silver-haired youth happily turned to his visitors, a kind, polite smile gracing his lips as he recognized his visitors. "Cat, badger, wolf," he waved his hand from his chair as he removed his glasses and placed them on the desk. "To what do I owe the honor of this visit?" he asked in a kind tone. "We might have something of interest for you," Cat replied with a small smile under her mask. Forest of Death, the Tower Arena. Naruto was bored out of his mind. The past several matches have been anything but entertaining, and he couldn't even read his book or study the scrolls he had on him. He thanked Kami for managing to finish the small job he was left with before the fights. Shino had managed to beat Chukai Torque without even breaking a sweat by draining his chakra. Shikamaru downright outsmarted Kintsuchi by slamming her head into the wall, even if she did manage to catch him in her bell-induced genjutsu. Temari Sabaku beat the daylights out of Zaku Abumi. There were only 2 matches left. He silently prayed that Sakura didn't end up fighting against Neji. Hayate idly watched as the screen flipped through the 4 remaining names, finally stopping on Sakura Haruno vs Shin Tasai. Well, shit, thought the entire Team 7, Kakashi included. The genin because the teen looked imposing, and power was literally rolling of him. Kakashi on the other hand because he finally recognized the boy. Shin, Deathbringer, Tasai, probably the only genin in the shinobi world with an entry in the bingo book. A taijutsu expert rivaling Lee, except for the fact that he can use chakra. Unconfirmed reports place him with a lightning affinity. Over 100 confirmed kills of genin rank, 20 of chunin and even 1 jounin. He sadly put a hand on her shoulder. "Sakura, no one will hold it against you if you decide to surrender this match." Sakura looked up to him, but what he saw surprised him. The look of burning determination he had only seen in Naruto. "I know. But I'm still going to fight," she calmly answered as she descended into the arena. Shin, her opponent, was perfectly calm, his look emotionless as he watched her. He was dressed simply, a pair of black cargo pants and a gray muscle shirt, along with ninja sandals. No kunai or scroll holsters. "I commend your courage," he said in a polite tone, "but it would not be wise to fight me." "You could die," Sakura sighed. He was perfectly right, and a part of her believed that she could probably die in this match. But then again, she had accepted that possibility long ago when she made her first kill. "I could die here, or on any other mission. I accepted those odds when I became a shinobi," she replied in a calm voice. Her determination crushed her fear, and the desire to prove herself to her teammates and sensei did the rest. Shin laughed. It was a warm and kind laughter, one which you wouldn't expect from a cold killer. Good. Let's fight then, he said while still laughing. Begin. Hayate shouted while jumping back. The two of them both dropped into stances. So, how do I fight him? Kakashi-sensei obviously thinks that this guy is powerful, and he's probably right. No weapons, so that means, either ninjutsu or genjutsu, and according to his build taijutsu, but most likely the last. Damn, the one area I'm weak in. Not trusting her limited skills in taijutsu, she pulled out a kunai in preparation for the attack. Seeing her hesitance to attack, Shin charged forth, preparing to slam his palm into her gut. Sakura barely managed to dodge the attack by twisting to the right, and the follow-up blow by his shoulder. Shin kept the pressure on her as he chained blow after blow, leaving just enough space for the girl to have a chance at dodging. What Sakura didn't know was that Shin respected her determination and sheer grit. And that he loved to fight a worthy opponent, which he considered her to be. Dodging blow after blow, Sakura actually managed to lay a few glancing cuts to her opponent, but in return, her left arm was completely numb from a single dislocating blow to the shoulder. No jutsu anymore, just pure taijutsu. My left arm might as well be gone, she thought as she watched for an opening in Shin's defenses. Kakashi was, for the umpteenth time this day, impressed by his team. Sakura was fighting far better than he thought possible. She certainly stood no chance against this opponent, even if he was holding back his strength, but even so, it was impressive. He might not have pressed them all into training like he should have, but they were still good. In fact, Sakura actually had talent for taijutsu and fighting with kunai. Sakura decided to go for her last resort, the fencing kunai. She leaped back, barely managing to unseal one of them from the scroll and once more taking up her stance. She wouldn't stand down or surrender. Not anymore. Several figures smiled at her actions. One was her opponent, another two were her two teammates joined by her sensei. She just doesn't give up. All the better, Shin mused as he waded past her elongated kunai. Sakura was now low on chakra. She could probably maintain the chakra shell around the blade for a few more minutes, but that was it. After that she'd fall unconscious. Her mind was racing, desperately grasping at ideas, until she remembered Naruto's match some time ago. What exactly did he do? He made the shell around the kunai break off. Wait, I could cut off the flow of chakra while swinging at the enemy, that should break it, right? She desperately thought as she kept dodging and trying to slash her enemy. Praying for this last move to work, she channeled the last remains of her chakra into the blade, before swinging it at Shin's chest. Shin was having fun. Pure, unadulterated fun, the likes of which he hadn't had in years. While he had to go at a third of his actual strength, the girl was going all out, pulling every trick she knew, and a few she probably didn't even figure out she was pulling. When she slashed at him, his smile faded as a blade of pure chakra broke off from the elongated kunai, heading straight for him. He grunted as the blade cut straight through his clothes and into his flesh, leaving a centimeter-deep gash in his skin, now bleeding. Sakura was barely conscious. "Proctor, the match is over," Shin said in a calm voice as Sakura nearly fell onto the ground, only to be caught by Shin. "Winner Shin Tokai," Hayate announced, as the medics picked Sakura up from the red-haired youth. Naruto watched him in interest. First he gave Sakura a chance by holding back, now he didn't finish her off when he was supposed to be a cold-blooded killer. Interesting indeed, he mused. There was only one match left, and a few people cringed when they saw the names. Neji Hyuga versus Hinata. Hinata shakily started going down into the arena, as her teammates and sensei wished her luck. She made a short look at Naruto, only to see that he noticed and silently mouthed something. "Kick his ass." She recognized the words and smiled, a bit of her confidence returning. From his perch, Naruto watched the two enter the arena. He was well aware that Hinata had a crush on him, but that was most likely a passing thing, although that didn't mean he couldn't cheer for her. The girl had a lot of talent, but was almost afraid to use it. He could only hope that she would fight properly now. Neji watched his cousin walk towards him with no small amount of hate. He disliked the main branch of the Hyuga family with a passion since his father died. And he blamed the girl in front of him for it. To his surprise, the normally shy and withdrawn Hinata was currently standing in the most aggressive of the Juken stances either of them knew. So she has some backbone. Not that it will help her. Why do you even try, Hinata-sama? Fate has decreed that you will be defeated here, he said in a cold, emotionless tone. Hinata winced, but didn't reply. Both Kurenai and Guy watched the match with growing horror as Neji proceeded to nearly kill Hinata, who to his surprise gave nearly as good as she got, leaving her cousin mostly disabled, but not injured unlike her. Naruto growled as he gripped the stone of the railing, his fingers making the structure crack from the pressure. How could that idiot do something like that to his family? Hinata was probably the kindest person he knew. What could she have possibly done to deserve such hatred? How little people appreciate things until they lose them. I never had a family, but that fool has a cousin that cares for him very much, and what does he do? Besides, aren't branch members of the Hyuga clan supposed to have a control seal? Does he understand that she could have used it the moment the match started to kill him? He mused sadly as the match continued. Hinata had blood leaking from her mouth by now and was barely standing. Neji was once more surprised. His worthless cousin was actually far better than he expected. In fact, if she wasn't aiming for non-lethal spots unlike him, he would have probably gotten badly wounded by now. So why didn't she? She could have also used the seal that would have fried his mind within seconds, yet he didn't even consider it. They both panted as they made a short break, eyes focused on each other's, each waiting for the other to move first. Why? Neji asked between pants, his analytical mind for the first time stumped at the behavior of the young clan heiress. She looked at him sadly. For a moment he growled, thinking she pitied him, but quickly realized otherwise. What could she possibly be sad about? Because I miss my brother, she said softly as the melee resumed. It finally struck him what she meant. While she knew how, she couldn't use the seal. She wouldn't. Just like she wouldn't harm him, even if it cost her her life. For the first time since his father had died, his eyes softened a bit. He still held a lot of pain and anger, but now there was a new feeling for his sister. Respect, I see, he replied in a monotone as he once more took to the offensive, this time avoiding any life-threatening blows, the rage that possessed him slowly receding. He did always love a good challenge, and it seemed that Hinata would prove to be one. The crowd was surprised as the match started picking up speed once more, the two locked in a majestic yet deadly dance as chakra visibly flared around them both. This time it was Hinata on the offensive, gracefully wading into his guard and finally managing to disable one of his arms with a quick strike to the pressure points on his shoulder. Neji managed to retaliate as she pulled away by sending a quick juken blow to her left leg, bringing her down. He was getting tired. The match he had expected would be one-sided had turned into a battle of attrition. He had decided before the match that he would keep all his tricks up his sleeve, hidden until the finals unless desperately needed. Proceeding to end the match, he bypassed her guard and placed 3 consecutive strikes on both her shoulders and her other leg, completely disabling her. Both nodded to the proctor before Hinata finally lost consciousness to her exhaustion. Winner Neji Hyuga Heiate loudly announced the victor of the final match while Neji watched over Hinata until the medics arrived to pick her up. He couldn't stop the smile that formed on his face in response to her own. Next day, 6 a.m., Uzumaki residence, rain yet again. Naruto was considering whether the gods had a sense of humor as he kept exercising his body while 100 clones were practicing chakra control on the roof. Push-ups were a generally easy exercise for him, so he tried Kakashi's version, by doing it on one finger with weights on his back. Although he seemed calm, his mind was racing, planning his course of action for the next month. This year, The old man decided going against the usual public drawing of the pairings for the finals, leaving the pairs unknown until everyone was there. But, as usual, his mind returned to current matters, such as studying the remaining 3 life seals in the book, acquiring more medical plants, studying new jutsu, and generally preparing himself. He was also quite proud of his achievements during the past week. He survived in battle against Orochimaru while destroying the cursed seal that was placed on him. He managed to keep most of his abilities hidden while finishing his scrolls on time and even figuring out a way to break an enslavement seal Ibiki asked him about, also providing him with the last detail he needed to break another. So much to do, so little time, he sighed sadly. Even Kyubi stayed silent these days, though he was wondering why. The fox was probably planning that training he talked about. His musings were stopped by a loud knock on his door. Yes? Orders from Hokage-sama, answered a familiar voice. Tiger. He opened the door revealing the masked man, whom he knew as Tenzo. He almost smiled at the man for remembering that it wasn't wise to enter his home without permission as there would be some unpleasant consequences due to the thorough sealwork placed inside. You are being summoned to the Hokage's office, Uzumaki-san, he explained quickly. Hi. Tell the old man I'll be there in a few minutes, he replied. Tiger nodded and left in a swirl of leaves. Naruto quickly closed the door, before summoning a few extra clones to pack everything up and activate the protection barriers. It was the first thing he made when he came home yesterday, a set of barriers that were meant to protect his work from others. With the security he had set up during the last month, there were precious few who could enter his home without his permission, but he still preferred to play it safe. Drying off the sweat from his exercises, he kept releasing the clones 10 at a time while dressing up. Finally putting up his reed coat, he buttoned it up while sealing the sword into the seal on his arm. Time to talk to Sarutobi, he thought, wondering why he was summoned. 7 a.m., Hokage's office. The tension was palpable as Naruto entered the esteemed office of the third Hokage. Inside were only 2 men, Jiraiya of the Sannin and Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Hokage. Both were apparently apprehensive of what was about to happen. Naruto was confused and concerned. No scenario he could fix up in his mind made sense of the situation, so he decided to just go with the flow and hope things turned out of the best. Naruto, Sarutobi started in a serious, but worried tone, take a seat, I have a few things to tell you. And I can only hope that you don't hate us for the decisions we made, he sullenly thought. He could say that he was one of the few people who knew Naruto well, but even he couldn't predict the boy's reaction to the news he had to tell him. Naruto sat down while studying the faces of both men. Both wore a concerned expression mixed with a hint of hope and pride. Naruto, you remember what I told you about your parents? He asked. Naruto raised an eyebrow, curious at where this was going. That you couldn't tell me for my own safety but that they loved me very much, he answered. Hiruzen nodded. The reason why I couldn't tell you was that your parents had many enemies, who wouldn't think twice to make their revenge on their offspring, he continued in a serious voice. So, who were they? Naruto was getting impatient, the desire to learn just who his parents were was overwhelming. He accepted the story his Jisan told him, but he had to know more. With a deep sigh, Hiruzen started, your father was Minato Namikaze the Yellow Flash and the 4th Hokage of Konoha, and your mother was Uzumaki Kushina, the Crimson Wind and daughter of the late daimyo of Whirlpool Country. He finished quickly, feeling a pang in his heart at the emotions that the boy's face went through. Naruto's mind was in turmoil. The 4th Hokage was his hero, the man he respected more than anyone in the world, the man who sealed Kyubi into his body to save Konoha at the cost of his life and soul, was his father. So my father is dead, he said in a somewhat hollow tone, but what happened to my mother? Both Sarutobi and Jiraiya sighed at the question. It was Jiraiya that answered, we don't really know, kid, Kushina is listed as dead. She was in the hospital, barely alive from giving birth to you when one of Kyubi's tails came crashing into the part of the hospital she was in. Her body was never recovered, he explained sadly. 2. See, Naruto stuttered as tears began welling up his eyes, and a soft sob escaped his lips. Gone. Both of my parents. So I truly am without kin. His tears kept flowing as he felt someone embrace him. It's okay, Naruto, let it all out, he heard Sarutobi's calming voice as the dam broke completely. Nearly an hour passed before he finally calmed down as his tears dried up. A cup of sake also helped calm his mind a bit, the burning liquid clearing his thoughts as it surged down his throat. 1,000 questions swirled in his mind, the new discoveries finally taking root in his mind. The cogs that had slowed down due to the sadness that engulfed him once more started turning as his mind analyzed and put each piece of the puzzle together. The book on sealing belonged to his father, and that was probably why it made so much sense. Sarutobi most likely gave it to him, knowing that he would have the talent to understand it. Keeping his mother's name would attract less attention than his father's, meaning that the numerous enemies Minato made wouldn't hunt him down, and placing a number of bodyguards would have only painted an even bigger target on him. Now that most pieces of the puzzle were fitted in, one currently remained out. Why the hell was Jiraiya there? Feeling a bit better? Sarutobi asked in a kind voice. Yeah, but it's a bit much to take in, he answered in a much calmer voice. Unfortunately, the news don't end there. Naruto closed his eyes and steeled his will. I'm ready for it, he replied. I'll explain the rest. Sarutobi-sensei, Jiraiya said in a quiet tone, and Sarutobi nodded. I have a bit to say, and I ask you to listen to what I have to say before you say anything, okay? Naruto nodded. With a deep sigh, Jiraiya began. First of all, you should know that I'm your godfather. Naruto's eyes widened, and he opened his mouth to ask a question, but closed it quickly. I was also your father's mentor when he was a genin and much later. I promised him that I would watch over you as best as I could. Sadly enough, that proved to be difficult, as your burden also made you a target for a certain group of people. Jiraiya stopped for a moment, thinking how best to explain the following part. The group is called Akatsuki. At this point we remain unaware of their objectives but have found out that they plan to gather and extract all 9 bijou from their containers. For the past 16 years, they have been trying to locate every single Jinchuriki, so far only failing to locate 3 according to my spies. Until a few months ago, you were among them. Sarutobi-sensei went to great lengths to conceal the fact that you were a Jinchuriki when we found out about this, and I've spent the better part of the last 13 years trying to hide your existence from them and to buy you some time to at least have a normal childhood, but I obviously failed at that. And I am deeply sorry, he finished, bowing his head in shame. Naruto thought for a second, his mind once more analyzing, gathering the information and piecing things together. His words made perfect sense, except for the small detail that somewhere in the back of his mind he remembered that he had seen Jiraiya before. During some of the frequent visits to the hospital he remembered that he was there checking on his seal while they thought he was asleep and leaving a small gift afterward. It was usually something simple, like the frog wallet that he affectionately called Gamakan, and that he now held in his bedroom, along with the rest of the things that were important to him. As Yuke as he wanted at one point, he couldn't hate either of them. They made their mistakes, but at least they tried for his sake. I forgive you, he said in a soft tone. If you help me with my training, he added with a chuckle. Jiraiya's head snapped up so fast that both Naruto and Sarutobi thought it would snap off. He stared at the blonde brat incredulously before bursting out in laughter, quickly joined by the other 2. You, ha ha ha, really are their son Naruto, he said, finally calming down from his laughter. Only Kushina and Minato would have had the guts to downright blackmail me into training. You've got yourself a deal, Naruto. I'll tell you everything else tomorrow. Meet me at the hot spring, 9 o'clock sharp. See you later, Sarutobi-sensei. I'm off to do some research, he said, the final words finished with a giggle which sent chills down Naruto's spine, while Sarutobi merely shook his head at his former pupil's antics. Now Naruto, there are 2 other things we need to discuss. First, is your parents' legacy, he said in a serious tone. Naruto sat up straight, carefully listening what the Hokage had to say. Your parents lived in a small estate between the Aburame and Inazuka estates. It remains whole, but sealed, waiting for you to enter. Minato said that he and Kushina left a pair of scrolls there for you when you were ready. He also asked me not to tell you who your parents were until you could defend yourself from any would-be assassins. Sarutobi explained, before chuckling, although I doubt he expected you to become this strong so soon. Naruto returned the chuckle. While he didn't like it one bit, it did make a lot of sense. I think it would be wise to keep my parentage under wraps for a while longer. At least until the finals, he finally said, making the old Kage nod proudly. He wouldn't have refused the boy his last name if he asked now, but this would be far better for both him and Konoha. Would you mind though, if I visited the place? I don't intend to move in yet, but some of my father's scrolls are there and they would be helpful, sure. I can take you there tonight. Just be here around 8. Now to the second subject. Anbu, he called, and 2 masked nin instantly showed up. Get me Neji Hyuga and Shikamaru Nara. Hi, they both said simultaneously before vanishing. Both sat quietly, Naruto opting for another saucer of sake before the 2 other genin arrived. Within minutes, the 2 Anbu returned with Shikamaru and Neji. Shikamaru looked calm, but a bit surprised at Naruto's presence, and Neji was just plain surprised, but hid it well beneath a mask of indifference. You called us Hokage-sama? Neji asked in a polite tone, curious as to why he was summoned and what Naruto of all people was doing here. Have a seat you two. Shikamaru, you are aware why you were called here, he said in a very serious tone. Naruto instantly focused, listening intently to whatever was about to happen. So these 2 get the job. Can't say I'm surprised even though it's troublesome, Shikamaru answered in a lazy drawl. Will you explain? Once more, Sarutobi shook his head, this time at the laziness that seemed hereditary in the Nara clan. Knowing 3 generations of said family, he was now completely sure of that. By combining the knowledge gathered from the 2 people you brought in Naruto, along with information from Jiraiya's spy network, we managed to ascertain that Otogekyure, under the leadership of Orochimaru, will invade Konoha during the finals of the Chunin exams. Also, Suna has been mobilizing a number of troops recently, and I believe they are likely joining in as well. Naruto kept thinking at every word that he heard, his mind now perfectly calm. So, when do we put in the preemptive strike? He asked in a serious tone, while all 3 looked at him in surprise. What? We can't really just wait for them to attack, can we? It only makes sense that we weaken them as much as possible before the invasion actually begins, and I'm betting that if Suna is joining in, Orochimaru plans to use Gaara, or more precisely Shikaku, to help him. The astonishment never left the 3 at the perfectly accurate description of what Jiraiya, Sarutobi, and Shikamaru expected Orochimaru to do, along with the comment about a preemptive strike. Why, yes, Shikamaru finally said, as you so well explained, we intend to weaken the Sand teams. During the exams, and with the information from the former Sound team that joined us, we can prepare for the invasion by luring them into a trap. The pairings for the matches are fixed up so that those that are capable can fight the trio from Sand. Shino will be facing Kankuro, while Sasuke has been paired with Gaara and I have been paired with Temari. These pairings make sufficient sense that no one will make a fuss about it and reveal what we know. Neji, you and Naruto will be fighting the first match. Make it a show, but don't hurt each other badly. We need you both for the battle that will follow. Kakashi Sensei and Kurenai Sensei are focusing heavily on training the 2, while other sensei are helping their teams. Both nodded. Shikamaru was pleased that he finally finished explaining, and could do something constructive, like watching clouds. Hey Jisan, I have a question for you, Naruto slowly said, both other genin watching incredulously at the blunt disrespect he showed for the Hokage, but since he didn't even react to it, said nothing. Yeah, Naruto? Why did you choose us of all people? I mean, I understand Shikamaru, he and his dad are the best strategists in the village apart from you, but why Neji and me when there is probably no reason for us to know all this? Neji once more looked surprised, wondering why he didn't ask themselves the same question, and figuring out just how much he had underestimated the blonde's intelligence. Shikamaru and Sarutobi smiled. Because this is your first mission as Chunin, Hiruzen quietly explained, all three of you have shown all the skills necessary for a Chunin, along with good leadership skills and tactical capacity. As such, you are now unofficially Chunin, to be promoted after the invasion. During the battle that is certain to come, you will be leading teams to defend Konoha as needed. Guy, Kakashi and Asuma have been notified of your status and will confirm it when needed. You are all dismissed, go and train for the finals. As the three started leaving, he remembered something. Naruto. I have a commission for you. Commission? Yes. Since your friend Kin, who by the way is now living in your apartment building along with her two teammates, informed me that the so-called Sound 4, Orochimaru's elite bodyguards, specialize in barriers, I need you and Jiraiya to come up with a way to break them. Barrier breaking, I'll see what I can dig up. Oh, and thanks for leaving me my dad's notes to work on, he added with a smile as he left. Sarutobi could now finally sit down and relax. The day went a lot better than expected, now he could finally relax a bit and… Hokage-sama, while you were in the meeting, this paperwork piled up. His secretary came in pushing a cart, loaded with piles of paper. Suffice to say that the Hokage spent the rest of the day considering alternate uses of various fire jutsu. 8:30 p.m., Clan District of Konoha, two shadowy figures silently moved towards the estates of the Aburame and Inuzuka families. The two fortified holds were probably the only ones that were built more to protect outsiders rather than those who live inside, as the insects and dogs weren't overly fond of uninvited guests. However, between the two holds was a forest, which the two clans used as a hunting ground. At the heart of said forest was a small estate surrounded by a tall stone wall. The two figures silently proceeded through the forest, unimpeded by the numerous beasts that inhabited it. The iron-wrought gates of the estate now loomed in front of them, the black bars completely covered in small golden seals which served both as protection and decoration. Wow was all Naruto could say as he observed the simple family home, that was better protected than the Hokage Tower. Being a seal master had its perks. It sure is something. I still remember the day Minato first showed us the home that he had built for himself, Kushina and you. It was finished only a month before you were born. Come on, place a bit of your blood on the plate and push your chakra into it, he prodded him on, glad to give the boy what was rightfully his. Now that both of them thought about it, no one apart from the Inuzuka and the Aburame would ever notice if he came here, and Sarutobi knew that both were his supporters in the council, and would gladly play dumb as to his visits here, if for nothing else, to annoy Danzo and his supporters. Absently biting his thumb, Naruto smeared his blood on the lock plate, while channeling his chakra into the seals. With a soft click, the gates opened to let them in, swiftly closing as soon as they entered. Naruto was taking in every part of the estate that had once belonged to his father and was now his. He had noticed that the walls had plates similar to the ones on the gate, made from wrought iron and covered in intricate golden seals, every couple of meters. He wondered for a second how did he manage to make so many, but reminding himself of all the benefits of shadow clones. The estate was relatively simple. A large walled-off field, with a two-story house near the gate, leaving a large backyard. He wondered if the house had its own hot spring, considering how frequent they were in fire country. The small cobbled path that led towards the doors was surrounded by beds of flowers, which were, to his amazement, in perfect condition, without any weeds. He once more blamed his father's knowledge of seals for this, as he had done similar things in his apartment. It was getting very interesting to compare his father's thoughts to his own, their apparently similar way of seeing things now becoming even more obvious. The house projected a feeling of warmth, the soft brown tones of the walls fitting quite well with the trees that easily reached the roof, probably granting shade to the path during day. The two of them walked in silence to the door, Naruto once more placing his blood on the door before entry. The mahogany doors opened to reveal a large corridor with polished wooden floors covered with silk rugs. The corridor continued opened into a large living room which overlooked the backyard. A large fireplace with a sofa in front of it seemed to be the centerpiece of the room. Along the sides, he noticed a pair of stairs leading to the second floor, and the numerous windows left the room glistening in moonlight. Along several small coffee tables, he spotted quite a few pictures, most of them of his parents. With a soft sigh, he decided against exploring the entirety of the house this night, opting to find the bedroom and sleep here tonight. "Ji-san, I think I'll sleep here tonight," he said in an equally soft voice. He could feel the aged Hokage nod behind him. "The bedrooms are upstairs. Dare I suggest you use the master bedroom?" Jiraiya picked out the bed, he said with a near-silent chuckle which Naruto gladly returned. It had been a long day, and he had too many emotions in his head to think straight. He had found out about his parents, discovered that he had a living godfather, who was willing to train him, learned that there was an impending invasion, a likely war, and unofficially became Chunin. Saying goodbye to his adoptive grandfather, he walked him off to the gates, before he vanished in a swirl of leaves. Back inside, he sleepily walked up the stairs. They converged at the top, leading to another door, which presumably lead into the second floor. The corridor that greeted him actually had several other doors, 3 on each side and 1 straight in front. Heading to that last door, he opened it and found himself in the master bedroom. A massive 4-post bed stood in the middle of the room. Flanked by 2 nightstands on each side, a small lamp on each. The right wall was entirely covered by a large mirror, the reflection of the entire room adding even more to the sheer feeling of size in the room. To the left he noticed 3 large dressers, and between them a door. Also, he saw a small desk in the corner. But what brought him to tears lay in the corner, a crib. Minato and Kushina had prepared everything for his birth. A quick check revealed that the door led to a luxurious bathroom. Quickly brushing his teeth, he considered one of the things he noticed. There was no dust anywhere, like the whole place had been sealed, which it probably was. He spat out the toothpaste before rinsing his mouth, and went back to the bed. Taking off most of his clothes, he carefully folded them and placed them on the chair next to the desk before lying down. His eyes remained open for the better part of an hour, his mind refusing to settle down to the bliss of sleep. He couldn't believe it and actually feared that all of this was some cruel illusion. He was home. With the feeling of security that the knowledge brought, he closed his eyes and finally drifted to sleep. Naruto woke up next morning to the rays of light which fell on his face. It had been years since he slept so peacefully or felt so rested. With a groan he stretched his muscles as he got up. There was a lot of work to do today, but first of all, he wanted to explore this house a bit, before leaving. He silently decided to permanently move in here once the exams were over. The upper floor contained nothing but bedrooms, each with its own bathroom. After a short stroll, he got down to explore the ground level. He was impressed to say the least. The kitchen was something that would fit in the palace of a king. A large room, half on the ground level, half beneath it, was the library, in which he saw thousands of books and scrolls on various subjects. One of the things he didn't see last night was a small walled-off area, a private bath fed by a warm spring rerouted to it. After a while, he came across his father's study. It was a room of decent size, with a large desk. On the sides he saw multiple shelves, each and every one of them stock-filled with scrolls. A short search revealed them to be a mixture of jutsu scrolls, reports, research materials and plans. However, it was the 2 scrolls on the desk that drew his attention. 2 ornately decorated scrolls, tied with a yellow ribbon and a note attached to them. For Naruto, from his parents. Naruto made a small smile and untied the ribbon. To his surprise, both scrolls slipped out of his hands as if guided by some invisible force and fell to the floor, unfurling in an X shape. His interest turned to shock as two ghostly figures appeared above the scrolls. A man and a woman. His parents. He realized that this was a recording of sorts as he watched the two of them begin to move, Minato fixing up his coat and Kushina fussing over it. "Is this thing working?" she asked in a somewhat annoyed voice. Her voice was naturally soft, he noted, but still had an edge beneath it, the result of years of fighting. He also noticed her large belly, realizing that was him inside. "Yes, love, it's working." Minato answered patiently, "Now come, we're leaving this for our son." He turned towards Naruto. A part of the boy wondered how the hell he knew where to turn. "Hello, son. We are both deeply sorry that you only get to see us like this. I wished for nothing more than to watch you grow up. By the time you even have a chance at watching this, I will be dead from sealing the Kyuubi into you, and from what the medics tell us, Kushina will most likely die from childbirth," he said sadly, tears visible in both of his parents' eyes. Naruto teared up as well. "Regardless, we wanted you to know that we loved you more than anything," Kushina now continued, "and don't let anyone tell you otherwise," she shouted while pumping her hand in the air. He couldn't help but laugh at their antics. He watched as Minato shook his head with his hand covering his eyes. "Now, since you're here and reading this, there are a few things that you should know. First of all, I've left a few scrolls for you in the safe in my study. Most of them deal with the finances you inherited. Second, I would suggest you start reading any books you can find on the laws and politics of Konoha. Ask the old monkey to help you out. You'll need them because as the former Hokage, I have a seat in the council which you inherit. And third, my research room is located in the basement." Now it was Naruto's turn to grin wildly. "The same council which made so much trouble. And should they doubt your ancestry," here both Minato and Kushina grinned, "kindly remind them that both of us left blood samples with Sarutobi, Tsunade, and Jiraiya. That should be more than enough for you to prove things." Suddenly, both went quiet, and Naruto noticed that Kushina was holding her belly, her face contorted up in pain. Minato first looked worried, then sent an amused look at Naruto. "I'd love to stay and blabber on, but apparently, you just chose to get born. Take care of yourself and know that we'll always love you." He tried waving only to get grabbed by Kushina. "Stop talking to that damn scroll and get me to the hospital," she shouted as she grabbed his shoulder for support. The image of the pair vanished after that, leaving the young boy in thought. Well, things are going to get interesting. 8:30 Small plateau outside of Konoha, Kakashi and Sasuke stood facing off as they sparred. He was directly ordered by the Hokage to train the Uchiha boy as best he could and was told why. While he didn't like the situation, there was little that he could do but train the boy and make sure he was ready. "You okay, sensei?" Sasuke asked in an uncharacteristically caring voice. Kakashi could only smile. The boy had changed greatly, from a stuck-up Avenger, into a much kinder and caring man. Although he could still use some work around the edges. "Yeah, just thinking about something," he said with his usual smile. "Now get back to work." 9 o'clock, Konoha Hot Springs. Jiraiya was having a good day. First of all, he had managed to get into the tree next to the hot spring unseen, using his transparency jutsu. Then he noticed an abundance of rather attractive ladies. He was scribbling notes in overdrive. He had almost forgotten that there was a student he was supposed to train today, and probably would have, had he not felt something poking him in the shoulder. He turned to face the person, only to find that there was no one there. Turning back, he found that his notes were gone. "Nice work, Ero-sensei," he heard a jovial voice speaking from the branch above him, where he found Naruto sitting in his usual clothes, reading his notes. "But you got the measurements wrong." Jiraiya mumbled something about annoying blondes as he swatted the notes from Naruto's hands. "So, when do we start with the training?" Naruto's playful banter instantly vanished when Jiraiya started grinning. "First, I need to see just how strong you are. Follow me." With a short jump, both found themselves on the ground. Naruto followed Jiraiya outside of Konoha, reaching an isolated training ground. The barren circular field surrounded by trees on one side, a lake on the other and finally a cliff face on the third was probably one of the most private training grounds in Konoha, well hidden from the rest of the world. Jiraiya suddenly stopped and summoned what Naruto assumed to be a shadow clone. "Alright Gaki, I want you to fight this clone of mine. Don't hold back even a bit, he has half of my chakra and he's not afraid to use it," he quickly explained as he got back to a safe distance. "Anything goes, right?" Naruto asked with a grin. "Anything," Jiraiya replied. Naruto immediately took a stance and began rapidly going through hand seals, wait seals, release, he shouted, as a small flash of chakra flared from his body, suppression seals, release, this time, the flare grew stronger than before as the two suppression seals were deactivated. Finally, he unsealed the Kubikiri Hocho and prepared for combat. For a moment the two figures stood in absolute silence, although if anyone was nearby, he or she would have probably fainted from the sheer amount of killing intent that was unleashed. Jiraiya's clone tried to overpower him with it first, but Naruto easily returned that by using first his own considerable ki and then lacing it with kyubis. On the sides the original whistled at the deed. Neither stopped as Naruto charged with his blade, intent on making it impossible for the near-legendary ninjutsu proofs of the Toad Sannin to come into play. The Jiraiya clone kept dodging and parrying the attacks with a kunai laced with chakra. There was no doubt about it, the fast swings of the massive sword, coupled with the boy's speed and constant addition of kicks into the mixture made standing long enough to use hand seals impossible. However, what worried both the original and the clone was the fact that Naruto wasn't using his chakra to enhance his speed or to use jutsu. He seemed to prefer relying on his sword and his reflexes. What seemed even more fascinating was the fact that his eyes constantly darted over the clone, seemingly studying it, while the body kept fighting. Jiraiya dodged another overhead swing, only for it to be followed up by a kick which finally landed. Now, it was Naruto's turn to be surprised. So, a shadow clone that didn't break from one hit. I'll have to ask him how did he do it. But now, it's time to bring out the big guns without slowing down for an instant. Three clones joined in the fight, making the clone Jiraiya start using his chakra to move even faster in an attempt to dodge, although now he had just enough speed to use jutsu. Naruto observed while fighting. He might not have the Byakugan, but training his skills to sense the use of chakra through radiance revealed an interesting fact to him. Unlike him, Jiraiya kept using the chakra to improve his speed and/or strength in short bursts. Thanks to his lightning-fast reflexes, such a way would be far more efficient than constantly covering himself in chakra. He also noticed that Jiraiya placed his hands in a single hand seal jutsu. Which one? Wild Lion's Mane, whispered the toad sage as his hair rampantly grew, before thick bundles of hair shot at great speeds, far too fast to be dodged by the nearest clones, wrapping itself around them and crushing them instantly. Shit, Naruto whispered as he sank into the ground, replacing himself with a clone which got attacked within seconds. Moving as fast as he could, he popped out behind the man, and prepared a paralyzing palm to strike into his back. As expected, Jiraiya dodged with ease. A single landed blow, he dodged almost every attack I tried. So, open attack don't work. A distraction then? Or multiple ones? Jumping back to avoid a quick swipe from Jiraiya, he returned to using his favorite jutsu. Jiraiya had already been going through hand seals preparing a new jutsu. Earth Release, Swamp of the Underworld, he shouted as he slammed his hands into the ground. Much to Naruto's shock, all of his clones were caught, and so was he. The fight was over. Not bad kid, the original Jiraiya commented as he dispelled the clone and the swamp. Can you tell me where you got it wrong? Naruto looked at him curiously at the question before thinking, I overestimated my skills for starters. Instead of going for overkill from the start, I gave my opponent a chance to plan and observe my skills. In the end that cost me the chance to use my more powerful attacks. Also, I took too much time to make my plans and too long to execute them. Good. Now, what can you say about your skills? Jiraiya asked again. By now he was grinning. The boy knew his failings. My kenjutsu is good, but still has a lot of room for improvement. Ninjutsu is weak. I don't know many jutsu, but those that I do know are mastered to the point that I can do them without hand seals or names. Chakra capacity is easily Kage level thanks to the fox sealed inside me, and my daily training has brought my chakra control to about Lojunin level. Speed and stamina are over Jounin level, that much I know. My Fuinjutsu skills are growing at a rapid rate, and at this point I probably know more about seals than anyone in this village except for you, Gigi, and a few seal experts in Anbu. Jiraiya nodded, and began his own speech. You got a few things wrong, and Clear forgot a few things. Your natural speed and stamina are Anbu level at least, and aside from Saratobi Sensei and me, you are the best seal user in town. Also, you failed to note that your reflexes have already reached superhuman levels and that you can see without using your eyes. Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly at the last comment. Yeah, I kinda keep that a secret. You see, about 2 months ago, I started talking with Kyubi, and he gave his word to help me with my training since I started taking all of this ninja business seriously. Among the things he taught me was radiance, the ability to project one's chakra outside one's body but still control it when it's outside. The first form is a shell of chakra that extends to certain distance, dependent on skill, and that serves as an artificial sixth sense. I'm as of yet unaware of the other forms. Jiraiya nodded. This was going to be a long day. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. Guys, make sure to help the author by visiting the link in the description. This is Fox Sage, and I'm signing off.